Howdy, howdy, and it's going to be a short video. So anyways, just had another discussion with another individual today regards the education system and and actually the economy, right? So bachelor's required, master's preferred, right? That's what's in a lot of these positions. Where in some cases that's either unnecessary or just the whole process of getting those degrees is grossly inefficient. I'll give you an example, right? So there's a guy I knew, he went through economics in high school. His high school actually had an economics course. He aced it. He loved it. He's like, you know what? This is my bag. This is what I want to do. And he gets to college, right? And he's like, all right, so I want to major in economics. And he stayed in college for about a year. And then he just gave up. And the reason why he quit was, he said, you know, I can understand having to take the math classes, but they made him take an elective language. They made him take psychology. They made him take English and all this other stuff. And he said the course plan for him for the first 2 years, before he even started doing any type of coursework at all, was general studies. He's like, you know, if I wanted an English major or a psychology major or a language arts major or an education major, I could see doing all this. He said, but all I wanted to do was study economics. So he's like, it's not worth it. Because the cost and the time spent before he would even begin to start work on what his desired profession is for training would have been 2 years of just busy work, fluff. And he would have to pay, or his scholarship or whatever he had, would have to pay for all those credit hours and all those books and all that other stuff for those 2 years. So it's kind of a graft, right? Here's another thing, right? I knew a guy who went in the military. And it gets deeper. And he went for satellite communications. And to get his MOSQ took exactly 9 months. I think it was 1,268 hours consistent of study, but it was pure coursework. So it was just 9 months of going to school 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, doing pure coursework. And the equivalency in the civilian world for what he got out of the military would have been a bachelor's in electrical engineering and radio frequency systems. Okay? And during his course in the military, he obviously took other technical courses, which would have given him the equivalency of a master's in that, as well as with his leadership courses, because he became a non-commissioned officer and had to take the military leadership courses in order to do that, would have given him an MBA in business administration, or the equivalency of it, right? Now, back in the 70s and 80s and into the early 90s, a guy with that type of military training, and the total sum of all his time spent in school for all of that education in the military was less than 4 years. Less than 4 years. To get what are the equivalency of what it would take someone 6 to 8 years in the civilian university system. But here's the kicker, right? in the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, early 90s, somebody with that level of education from the military could go and transfer all of his military training credits and get either the full degree or almost that degree level training, and maybe have to take, another year's worth of classes or just a few things here or there to complete it out. Whereas today, almost none of that transfers over. So you get a guy who's a very highly trained and proficient military veteran in a technical field, and when he was in the military, was functioning at the level of an engineer, a very highly trained engineer, or technician or professional. And when he was in a setting where he was working with civilian contractor counterparts who had 6 to 8 years worth of education, he was working at their level, side by side, arm in arm with them, right? But then once he gets out, he has to go and do the 6 to 8 years all over again, in spite of the fact that he has on paper certification and proof and the experience from the United States military that he can function at that level and that he's already been trained at that level. So combined with what the universities are doing with civilian students who just want to get a graduate degree of some sort, and they have to do all this extra nonsense, general studies nonsense, before they start doing coursework. And for those who are coming out of the military who are highly trained and already at that graduate level, or even completed that graduate level, but they're not getting credit for it, it's almost like there's a racket going on. And it's between the universities and a lot of the businesses, because I told a story one time about how a janitor at Raytheon discovered invented the microwave by accident. But once he figured it out, they immediately put him in a position where he could develop the system, because he had proven, even though he wasn't formally educated, and this is an extreme example, even though he wasn't formally educated, that he was proficient enough to develop those types of systems, right? So they gave him the engineering job, right? But gone are those days. And then we sit around and we wonder why the later part of Gen X, almost all of the millennials, and now a lot of Gen Z, unless they get a free ride scholarship with everything paid, they're somewhere between $30,000 and $200,000 in debt just to get a certification from an intentionally inefficient system, so that way they can enter the workforce. It just appears to be a very highly gilded and deliberately ineffective system to dissuade people from even participating. How many intelligent, gifted, talented people have looked at something like that who were perfectly able and capable of obtaining the coursework and the training to take on those professions, walked away from that just because they saw that it was just not worth the time and money? What's the economic cost to our economy to that? Just and I talk to people about this, and I get very disturbed about it, especially if they have children who are locked into this system, and they have to do this. And I'm like, it's not like I can play God or do anything to change it, but I'm like, do you realize how angry this and frustrating this is? Because this is actually abusive to your child. Your child went to that school to go get training in a specific thing, and then they want to go out and earn a living. They just want to get certified and go to work. And this is costing you and them, or their scholarships, just 5 or 6 figures before they even set foot in the workplace. And it's wasting years of their life. Just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. The only thing that I could think that's an approximation to this is Walter Williams is one of his discussions in a documentary he made back in the 80s called the name just slipped my mind. Having old people problems today, right? Anyways, Walter E. Williams made a documentary about this, and this was one of the topics of discussion. Some of it had to do with the minimum wage, but a lot of it had to do with like taxi medallions and stuff like that. And the documentary's name was Good Intentions. That's what it was, right? And he pointed out how these systems were almost, it appears, designed to keep the poor and the ignorant. Because if the United States military can take someone and in less than a few years' time, less than 4 years' time, give an individual the same level of proficiency of training as it would take that individual to do in the civilian university system, nearly double the time, actually a time and a half to double that time. There's something really, really wrong with that. Okay, that points to gross inefficiency. And then, just for good measure, to slam the door shut in those people's faces when they have the proficiency, the paperwork to prove their proficiency, and the experience, and force them to go through that system again. That's evidence of a deliberate caste system. But we live in a free country. That's all for now. This is Aaron Purdue, signing out.